Okay, so today we're going to talk about the attribution theory. This is a presentation for my student motivation class, EDU 360, and I know I'm in my work clothes, but we're going to do this anyway because I feel like getting this done, so let us get started. So, the definition of the attribution theory, I thought a really good one that one of my sources pulled was is that motivation is influenced by how we attribute causes to outcomes. So basically, why do we think this happened, and are we going to be motivated because of how we perceive that happening? And there's a lot more to it than this, so let's just jump right on into. So there's two theorists that are really attributed with the attribution theory. The one who first coined the term was Fritz Heider in 1958. He was the first person to really add the attribution theory into psychology. And then starting in 1976, Bernard Weiner, I don't know how to pronounce that, but we'll say Weiner, expanded on that research. And to this day, he's actually still doing some of that research. And in fact, one of the sources that I used had his name in the authors section. So he's one of the authors in one of the articles that I got a bunch of my research from, which I think is pretty cool. So, little fun facts for you. So, what determines our thoughts towards an event? A lot of the articles really stated there's like three pillars that kind of shape our thoughts towards events that happen in our daily lives. So the first of this is locus of control, and basically it's when the event is internal or external. You may have heard this before or familiar because of the internal locus and external locus. So like, is it coming from inside you, or is there a factor outside that's causing this to happen? So for example, did I turn my homework in late because because I chose not to finish it, or because the video game was too distracting? So are you blaming yourself, or are you blaming the video game? And then there's stability, which is basically is the success or failure of the event temporary or permanent. So for example, if I keep turning in my homework late, that would be the failure. Will it continue to make my grades go down, or is at one point is it gonna change, or the teacher may not care or something? So obviously, if a problem like that would be stable because it would be permanent. And then lastly, there's controllability. Is there a way to control whether there is a success or a failure the next time? So, for example, can I help my grades by turning in my homework on time? And obviously, the answer is yes. So, it would be an internal locus of control, it would be stable, and it would be controllable. That's really the best case scenario that you can think of. There's four attributions that students will tend to make. The first of these four is ability, and that's like skills or talents that a person has. And ability has an internal locus, and it's stable and it's uncontrollable. Task difficulty is like how hard or easy a task is. That has an external locus and control because you're blaming the assignment, but it's stable and it is uncontrollable. Effort is how much work is put into a task. That has an internal locus, stable, and is controllable. And then luck is basically just sheer fate, like, oh, it just happened that way. That's external, unstable, and uncontrollable. And this one is probably the best thing, and this one's probably the worst, and then these two would kind of be in the middle, but ability would be better than task difficulty. So effort, ability, task difficulty, and luck. That would be like that would be the way you would order them. Some of my articles like listed some real life examples of attributions that are like go across different cultures, and this is generally speaking, it's like not like stereotypes, but generalizations. So it's been noted that the Chinese American students will attribute their failure to a lack of effort. Students in Australia have attributed their failures to the difficulty of the task, so task difficulty. Students in the US, that's where we are, generally attribute success to ability, while African American students will usually do that to ability and effort, and that's for both success and failure. And then there's also a difference between boys and girls. So boys will attribute their success and failure to more external factors like task difficulty and luck, but girls will mostly attribute that to internal, such as effort and ability. And then students with learning disabilities will not often attribute their failures to a lack of effort, and they may attribute their success to luck. It's like, oh, I passed, but that wasn't because I did anything. It was because of fate. Like, I just happened to do it, which isn't the best mindset for it, but we'll get to that shortly. And then from our Cushman book, I did the student Berenice, and I think this was in chapter 3, but it was on page 34, and the quote says, I had trouble starting and ending different kinds of writing, like speeches, essay, research papers, or memoir. What helped me was that I liked to read other people's work, and I could observe how their structure was different from mine. I know I'm not the best writer, but I have improved a lot. By the time I left, I had about 12 speeches written, and I knew how to write under pressure. So her failure was that she knows she's not the best writer, so she attributed that to her ability, but she contributed her success to the effort because she said she's improved a lot. So that's how I feel that the attribution theory could be used to help the student. And there are many ways that you can use the attribution theory in your training or teaching training. Haha. So the first would be like the mindfulness or cognitive based theory. So basically, cognitive based therapy is when you're using strategies to help like reshape your mind. So like if you're constantly blaming like your success or failures on external factors rather than internal factors, then that could really help you. Um, you should always remind students that their success or failure is up to them, as quoted in one of my articles, and that no one or nothing else that has that, and that you have high expectations of them. So just let them know that it's up to your ability and effort that will show your success in this class, and not simply by the task itself, and not simply by luck. So, and also connected to that, teach students to focus on those internal locus attributions and not so much as task difficulty and left those external ones, because the internal ones seem to be more motivating for students. Have students focus on learning the task rather than simply passing or failing the assignment. And then stay away from those stereotypes about what students attribute to their success or failures. Like, generally speaking, like we had on that one slide, they're gonna want to attribute their success or failures to a certain way, but that doesn't mean you have to revolve your teaching around that. Try to get them to attribute their failures and success to different aspects of it. So, sort of the final thing, why is this important? So, there's might be a number of reasons why students succeed or fail at certain tasks. For example, a student might enjoy science because he has ability to read charts and diagrams with ease, so that's ability, and that might be better than most of his peers. But he may hate gym class because he finds most of the activities, such as pacer tests, gosh, remember those, he might find them too difficult, so that's the task difficulty. Or you might have a student who might enjoy writing because she was praised for putting tons of effort into her essays by a teacher, so that effort. But if she were to ace her next math test, she would blame that on luck because she's often just failed math tests in the past. So that would be on luck. So what students need to know is that whenever they succeed or fail at a given test, it's not always because the test is too difficult or by a stroke of luck, and that more often than not they succeeded because they either worked hard at it or they were always good at it. So students should not have to rely on luck for their successes because it's rarely ever the reason. So if we just set those high expectations for our students, then they'll see that using their abilities and putting more effort into a task will help them succeed. And these are my sources. I'll just go through these quick. This first one, causal attribution patterns of mainstream school students and their effect on achievement, that gave me a really good good examples for those 4 attributions: the ability, effort, task difficulty, and luck. I thought they gave me really good examples on that. This one was just a website about the attributions theory, which I thought was a good general thing. And then Cushman's book, that's where I got Berenice. Fishman, that's where I got that definition from, and it also just gave me a lot of information about the attribution theory that was like a good starting point for me. So I would definitely recommend that. And then this one here, attribution-based motivation treatment efficacy in an online learning environment for students who differ in cognitive elaboration. So that was how you can use the attribution theory in like technological sort of ways, such as like with the coronavirus going and all. And that was the one that was actually had Weiner as one of the authors, Bernard Weiner. So I thought that was pretty cool to have that in there. This one, a longitudinal study of the domain generality of African American students' causal attributions for academic success. That had a lot of the generalizations I had found. And then examining achievement goals and causal attributions together as predictors of academic functioning. That just had more information. It also kind of compared the goal orientations theory to it, but with an emphasis still on the attributions theory. Okay, and that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed this, and stay safe. Don't get the coronavirus.